Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be using some stencils to create a mask of an abstract background. So I'm starting in a 6x6 journal. I think it might be 8x8 actually, I'm not 100% sure, a square journal. And I'm just starting to put some paints down. I'm actually starting with a neutral, so I'm starting with some buff and some apricot. And I wanted this to be a fairly fluid type background. So instead of using my paintbrush, I'm using my fingers. And I really love this because you get this beautiful sort of blended technique that doesn't have brush strokes in it. It's not as precise. And I find I've got a little bit more control over how the paint sort of works together. If you start losing colour, I was losing a bit of the pink, I just go and put some more pink back on again. Once I've sort of finished, not finished, but playing around, I'm happy with sort of the background area, I'm going to dry it off. So as soon as it's dry, it's permanent, which means it's not going to shift around anymore. The reason I put those neutrals on to begin with, just add a little bit of wetness to the page, and it meant I could actually smudge everything together. So it wasn't going to change the colours too much. It was maybe going to give a little bit of lightness and a bit of shadow to my page, but it would help the paints move around. Now with some brighter colours, some lime and some lemon over the top, I am adding some marks. I'm also using some Stabilo Woodies, which is just a water-soluble pencil, just really chunky. It's a kid's pencil. You could use anything. You could use pens, you could use crayons, it's up to you. The only thing you do need to be aware of is if you put anything water soluble on this, it will smudge with the paint we're going to put over the end. Because we're not going to be using too much paint, you can get away with it, but just be aware that if, for example, if I was using watercolors, it's going to shift quite a bit. So if you are doing this with lots of water-soluble media, just make sure you either seal it in some way or have thought about that before you proceed. Because it was getting a little bit dark, I wanted to put some white back onto the page. So again, just using my fingers, I just sort of smudged it in. And again, I'm using my Stabilo oil pencil to draw into the wet paint. And then I'm going to dry it off. I really liked how this background turned out, and I had a moment of, I don't really want to do what I'm about to do next, but I wanted to sort of show you that you can use this technique on anything you want. So this is a background I actually really like, but it could be a background that was an absolute disaster. You'll see though, I did take a picture of it, and I do this quite often with backgrounds that I like because I can print those out again. I can use them as inspiration. I can use it as collage fodder, just to keep myself happy. But what I wanted to do with this was to mask over this, and what that's going to do is it's going to frame parts of my piece and make it sort of give a focus to those areas. And this is called the Pebble Path stencil, so it's quite an open organic stencil, which I really like, and it has those little triangular bits in it because it's obviously a path. I just wanted to have the large open spaces, and all I did was with a pencil quickly drew around the outside areas, and I'm going to paint in using white gesso. Now I'm being quite light with my application. It's still quite see-through. You can kind of sort of see through the paint, but it's giving me that impression. You can already sort of see at the bottom of the page how that's kind of bringing everything together. It's giving it a frame, I suppose, and blocking out some areas and making you a focus area in others, which I really, really like. The other thing is, by using a stencil like this, you're going to, as hard as I try, if I tried to sort of draw organic wonky shapes like this, it would end up probably looking very regular. So I really like that I can use a stencil to make it easier on myself, but also sort of come up with this cool effect over the top. So you can sort of see how that's all painting together. Now I'm using white on this because it sort of kept the brightness on the page, but you could use any color. You could do this with black, you could do that with a color that you've chosen in the background, or a completely contrasting color. Do what makes you happy. Once I've dried off the gesso, I'm then going to go around with the Stabilo oil pencil around those open shapes again. And this is going to help with that framing. So you can see already, just by putting that little bit of darkness around the outside, it's really helping to pop out those colours from the background. It's taking it from that middle layer to actually having a really strong foreground and background. With the Stabilo oil pencil, because it is so waxy, I'm just going to heat it up a little bit. And then I'm going to smudge around it. And I like this for two reasons. It's a little bit more controlled than using the water. Don't get me wrong, I love wetting the Stabilo oil pencil, but it does give a little bit more of a darker look to it. And also it picks up some of those brush strokes over the top, so you get this really cool effect of it. Because the white is so white on it, by smudging over, you get this sort of grey tone as well, which I really liked. To finish off this piece, I'm just going to put a quote on, and I'm using this quote from the Rainbows quote stencils, and I'm going to cut out a little banner. So I've just stenciled it using black ink onto a piece of cardboard, and then I'm going to sort of cut out a bannery end piece. I'm sure there's a better pennant. I'm not sure what's the best way to do this, or say it, sorry. And I'm going to attach this onto it. I decided I did want to put a little bit of a border around it, but my first pen didn't work, so I got my trusty old Posca paint pen out to create a sort of winky wonky border. And for a change as well, I decided I was going to staple this onto my page, which I don't do very often with my journal. I do love my little mini stapler, but I just like the effect of the background so much. I like the fact I could sort of flip that quote out of the way. I'm also just adding a little bit of colour onto that by using a a neon green gel pen, just as a little bit of a drop shadow to my piece. This is a close-up of my abstract background. You can see all those smudges of colour and how they've blended together, and it's just so much fun to make. This is for the close-up with a little bit of paint, so you can see that smudgy effect from the Stabilo oil pencil and how it frames up the colours of the background and brings it all together. Here's a close-up of the stencil I used, which is a Pebble Path, and the quote that I put on the page and the final page all together. This would be brilliant. You could reduce this down, use a smaller stencil and do it for a card front. You can do it on a bigger scale. It's a really, really versatile technique, and it's a great way of working over pages that you're not happy with, because you'll be really surprised once you mask over the top of it to see what the end result is. So I hope you have a go. Until next time, bye for now.